Live long and prosper. Today I'd like to talk with you about the Buddhist 3 T's: training, transcendence, and transformation. But before I do that, I'd like for us to practice a few minutes of meditation together. So I'd like for you to sit comfortably on your chair, in a mindful posture. Maybe take some things out of your hands if you want. Perhaps put your hands on your lap in some relaxed, comfortable way. And just take a deep breath with me. And if you'd like to close your eyes, you may. You can also leave your eyes open, looking downward. Just feeling the breath, feeling the body, feeling the heart. Let's take a deep breath together. Placing our palms together at the heart. Repeating after me this affirmation of love and guidance. May we and all beings be happy and free.
May we and all beings be happy and free.
May we and all beings transform our suffering.
May we and all beings transform our suffering.
May we and all beings rejoice in all joys.
May we and all beings rejoice in all joys.
May we and all beings be at peace.
May we and all beings be at peace.
Awakening to the truth of who we are.
Awakening to the truth of who we are.
Infinite light.
Infinite life.
Infinite love.
Infinite love.
Infinite life.
Infinite life.
Thank you. So this morning, I would like to share with you the miracles of mindfulness. And I'd like to start by just sharing a little bit about my life story. When I was still in my mother's womb, she would walk every day to this church nearby where she lived. And she would sit on the steps of the church and she would just put her hands on her womb. And she would pray for me. And when she told me this story, it really touched my heart. Because I realized that even before I was born, there was so much love for me. And that reminds me that it's the truth for all of us. Even before we are all born, there is so much love for us. And part of the miracle of mindfulness is to rediscover that love that is there for all of us. So many times we get caught up in our stress, our adult life, our work life, all the different goals that we believe that we need to attain. But do you remember the time when you were a child when you didn't think about all these things? Do you remember how free it felt? And then slowly over time, it just seemed that it's almost like a feeling of a prison for some of us. Slowly, but you don't realize it's a prison because it's such a slow process of oppression. It's kind of like a frog in a pot of water. Turn up the heat slowly. It doesn't realize it's boiling to death until it's too late. And that's actually what is our condition in the world today. We started off as children, as babies, fresh and new, innocent and open. But slowly over time, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, decade after decade, slowly we've been conditioned by the society around us and all of the different TV advertisements and media, and now it's quite overwhelming how much stimulation there is from the media. Over time, somehow that freshness has slowly been stamped out. But there is hope. The Buddha offered us several different suggestions to help us to recover that freshness. As I grew up in the Southern Baptist tradition. And then in college, I discovered liberal religious views. And I struggled back and forth with that. It wasn't easy. But I eventually decided that the more liberal religious way was my way. And so, amongst some of the denominations that were very helpful to me were, of course, the Unitarian Universalists. And eventually, when I went from Texas to California, I decided to go to seminary, starting School for the Ministry in Berkeley, California. And so, I've been on this path for a while now. But what's interesting for me is on the way to a more liberal view, I realized that it's not enough just to have a liberal view. There needs to be something else there. So I looked around for what else is there besides religious, spiritual viewpoints that I can agree with. And it's nice to finally find some religious viewpoints you can actually agree with that don't make your skin crawl every time you hear it in church. It's really nice. It's a wonderful experience, but it's not enough. So I began to explore other aspects of spirituality. And, of course, for a time I really appreciated the socially active aspects of religious liberalism. And I participated in many different ways for a time, and still do. But I quickly discovered that as important as that is, it's still not the full picture. Because if we are only having these wonderful viewpoints, and then only being socially active, there's still something missing. And I discovered, because many of my socially active friends who were protesting and fighting for human rights, they didn't seem very happy. And many times, many of them were starting to burn out. It's very frustrating work. It's important work, and we need to do it, but it can really wear you down. So I realized very quickly there must be something else also. Obviously, religious education is important. Social activism is important. But it wasn't until I encountered a Vietnamese Zen Buddhist monk named Thich Nhat Hanh that I discovered what that other aspect is that's also important. And it's not that any of these three aspects is more important than the other. They have to go together in balance, of course. But if any one of them is missing, there is an imbalance in your spiritual practice. So I discovered mindfulness meditation. And my first retreat was in 1998 with Thich Nhat Hanh in Santa Barbara, California, with about 800 other people. Now, I went because a friend of mine went, and it's really nice to have friends that can nudge you along the path, and that's a wonderful thing. So I was very grateful for that friend. So I went, and it was wonderful. I was a little bit scared because it was all vegetarian for a whole week. I kept wondering if I could sneak over to McDonald's somewhere sometime during that week. But the cafeteria staff were so friendly and so accommodating and helpful to help us all with all of our different dietary special needs. And the food was absolutely delicious. realized that, oh, this is not so hard. In fact, it's wonderful and delicious. Another thing that I realized was that it wasn't very hard to be on retreat. I had all these thoughts in my mind of Zen masters coming behind your back to like whip you into shape and all of that. And it wasn't like that at all, at least at this kind of retreat. I have been to the other kinds too. But it was so wonderful to be with 800 people and not feel claustrophobic and not feel anxiety like I had sometimes felt with so many strangers. I didn't feel that. I think it's because everyone was being very mindful. And there wasn't a lot of just random monkey mind chit-chat about nothing. You know, there's nothing wrong, of course, with just conversing with people about anything. However, I think our culture, we do it a little bit too much. And it can actually drain you mentally and in your energy body. So just to be at this retreat with 800 people, not having to come up with some story to talk about, just to look interesting to people, to prove that you can be socially non-awkward, it was such a relief. Such a relief. And to walk on the beach in the morning as the sun was rising, to hear the water, and to just breathe in and breathe out, and walk slowly and mindfully, and just feel the air, feel the body, feel the earth, feel the sun. What a miracle. And after a week, my mind felt so different than at the beginning of the retreat. You see, most of the time, most of my life, I always felt my awareness, my consciousness, my sense of self, my mind, felt like it was inside the skull. And many times, because I had so many thoughts and ideas, and that it felt like it was squished inside the skull. Have you ever felt that? I think, especially people who think for themselves, that's how we can many times feel. And yet, at the end of the retreat, 5 or 6 days, at the end, I felt like actually my mind was like the blue sky, as large as the blue sky, as expansive and spacious as the air around me. And I had never felt that before. Now, there was one time I actually recall where I felt a little bit of that. And that was when, a few years before, a friend of mine and I decided to go camping in the mountains for 4 days. And we decided to agree with each other not to talk to each other unless necessary. And so we were just in the quiet, just with nature for 4 days. I had never done that before either. And I remember at the end of that 4 days, sitting there on the hill overlooking the valley, with the clouds coming in. What a beautiful experience that was. And again, I had a small glimpse of that feeling of expansiveness. But it wasn't anything like the expansiveness of this retreat. And so I realized it is possible for my mind to be this expansive, to feel this expansive. I didn't realize that this was possible for the human mind. Many times at retreats that I lead, maybe even just half-day retreats, when I invite the people who are participating to practice with me, sitting meditation, walking meditation, eating meditation. Many times I hear stories from them that little miracles happen. For example, in Minneapolis at this church, where there were about 60 persons who participated in this day of mindfulness, one of the participants, told us in the sharing time, during the walking meditation outside, she had this beautiful experience of looking at this tree and seeing the little flowers, little buds of flowers starting to come out on the tree. And it just opened her heart. And she began to cry. She thought it was very strange that something so simple would touch her so much. And another gentleman, while we were walking on the grass, he related that he had been walking on that lawn for years at that church. And he had never noticed the little tiny microscopic yellow flowers inside the grass. And he was amazed that he had never noticed that before. And he really felt this connection to the little flowers in the grass. And I think the reason why he felt that heartfelt connection to something that simple is because it's not just about the object of awareness. It's the fact that all this time we've been missing out on the beautiful little things. And it can be very heart-opening and sometimes overwhelming to realize that we've been missing out so much because of our unmindfulness. And if this gentleman and that woman can notice the flowers that were unnoticed before, it reminds us that all of us are like flowers. And we may feel insignificant in this large and vast universe. And yet, there is a truth that each one of us is deeply embraced by reality itself. And none of us is insignificant. Each of us is precious. And in my own life, dealing with different issues like anxiety or depression or other issues, I'm sure all of us deal with different things. This practice has helped me so much. It has helped me to realize that I am not insignificant. I am not worthless. I am not just a small being in this big universe. In fact, the truth is, every single one of us is the entire universe in one form. I don't really have time today to go into all the metaphysics of Buddhist philosophy. Maybe if you like me enough to invite me another time, I can. But today I'm talking slowly, I'm talking simply, because mostly the message isn't in my words today. I hope that you can hear the message that's radiating silently from my heart to you today. And I hope that you can just feel the message in the peacefulness today. And I know that's hard for Unitarian Universalists who love the intellectual. And for those of you who are here who have heard me speak before in other places and you know me, you know that I have the capacity to be very intellectual and philosophical and to give a lot of information. But for some reason, when I asked for guidance from within for today, the message I received was to be simple and to let the silence be the message, the silences between the words, and to let my presence be the message. To let my love and my heart be the message. Because you don't really need more messages. You're very educated. You know, the Buddha taught 3 aspects that are very important for our spiritual growth. spiritual education, wisdom and understanding is one. And I think that all of you have a lot of education already. You already have to know well that you need to know to be on this path of enlightenment. And of course, as Unitarian Universalists, you are all very involved with helping the world. So ethical social activism is the second aspect, which is very important, and you all have that. But I think my message to all Unitarian Universalists is that don't forget the third aspect, which is meditation, mindfulness, training the mind through consciousness practices like mindfulness and meditation. This is very important. Without that, we're not fully on the path, just partly on the path. And there's not only one way of practicing mindfulness meditation, so there's many varieties of ways. You just need to find the way that works for you. And I just want to encourage you in that. I will close with a story about one miracle of mindfulness. One time I went to France to see my teacher Thich Nhat Hanh for the summer retreat. And there were about 1,000 people there. And I had a gift for him. He had been my teacher for several years. And I really wanted to share a gift with him. So we all stand up as the bell rings, and then Thich Nhat Hanh walks into the room with his entourage of monks and nuns. And everyone places their palms together at the heart in respectfulness. And as he walks closer and closer, I made sure I sat on the front row. So I'm standing there, and right as he is about to pass by me, I bow to him, and he stops, and he's a little bit startled, and he bows to me, and then I quickly put the gift into his hand. And at first he didn't know what it was, but then when he realized what it was, he smiled. And in that moment, I felt as if some sonic boom of energy came from his heart, pulsed from his heart, hit my heart, and shook my entire being. And I began to quake and shiver and cry. And it was such a powerful experience for me to feel the energy of his heart, literally, tangibly. That was one miracle of mindfulness for me, to realize that there is a real powerful energy of the heart. And someone who has practiced as deeply as Thich Nhat Hanh cultivates that heart very powerfully. You know, that's the difference between a superstitious approach to religion and a practical approach to religion. A superstitious approach just expects life or God or reality to just zap you into, wonderful, open-hearted beings, just automatically. But that's superstitious. A truer understanding of reality is to see it as a practical approach, which means that we need to practice, that we need to cultivate, that we need to put attention to opening our heart, opening our mind, opening our energy. So, I'm not here to try to convince you. If I had wanted to do that, I probably would have a whole chart of everything on PowerPoint. I just want to encourage you to take what you already know and to just practice it. Not only in ethical, social activism, and religious education, but also in meditation. Because we Unitarian Universalists are really needed in this world. We are really needed. But we can't give out the full power of what we have to offer if we are missing one piece of the puzzle. So I encourage you to start learning meditation, start experimenting with it, come up with uniquely Unitarian Universalist ways of meditating, and encourage all members of the congregation, and especially the children, to practice meditation. Because when we have a mind that is fully cultivated by meditation, then we see so much more than before. And we experientially realize the great love and the grace and the power that is already present within and all around us. All the things that we take for granted. You know, when we don't realize how beautiful we are, when we don't realize what a miracle our heartbeat is, when we don't realize how wondrous being able to see a flower in front of us is, it makes it very hard for us to cultivate happiness. And that's why we allow ourselves to be distracted and addicted to so many other things, artificial stimuli, to make us happy. When all we need to do is realize all the ingredients of happiness already present through mindfulness. And then you don't need all the other artificial external extras, which in fact is destroying our world right now. Because with 7 billion people participating in hundreds of distractions and addictions in their lives, we can't survive as a civilization like that. So, thank you so much for being who you are. Thank you for all the wonderful liberal education that you taught yourselves and taught me, and you teach the world. Thank you for supporting all the social activism that is necessary for human rights in this world. But because I love you, I want to say, don't forget about meditation too. Because with meditation, Unitarian Universalism will be such a bright light in the world, and so much more powerful and so much more effective in helping people change their lives. So in conclusion, I would like to invite you to chant with me, chant of loving kindness, to radiate that love in your own life and to all beings. And I'm wondering if that microphone is on at the moment or not. Is it? You're not much of a chanter, it doesn't matter, just allow the vibration. Allow the vibration to just permeate your whole being and radiate out to all beings. May all beings be happy. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free. May all beings be free. May all beings be